Okay, good morning, everyone. I think let's get started. I can see that there's more and more people who are joining the session, but great to have so many of you joining us today. As you're joining the session, it would be really nice if you wouldn't mind just dropping into the chat who you are, where you're coming from, your organization, any of that type of information, just to kind of so we can start to kind of get a bit of a feel for who all is with us today. My name is Barry McNeill, and today we're going to be focusing in on the topic of drive growth through customer experience. Let's get started on the session, and I'm sure a few more people will start to join as we get going. I can already see there's a few people starting to add their comments into the chat already. So we've got folks, Tom from Northumberland, Philippa from Tender Help, Sam joining from Cleaning and Repair, Catherine joining from Central London, James, founder of the Chefs for Foodie Startup Awards, great. Dave from Perth, Australia, brilliant. Okay, so we've gone totally international. Great to have so many of you with us. Keep your comments high to everyone. Great to have so many of you with us today. Keep those going into the chat, and then we can certainly kind of come back to you at various points as we get into the topic. But let's start to kind of get into the topic today of drive growth through customer experience. And I really want to kind of just start us off, first of all, with, I suppose, the kind of real question is, why are we focusing on customer experience as a growth strategy, as opposed to thinking more about, acquiring new customers, bringing new customers into our organizations or into our businesses? Why are we thinking about customer experience as a growth strategy? And so what I'd really like to do is I'd like to just going to pop up. So there's a QR code on screen at the moment, and I've also just putting a link into the chat. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you just to take a moment to think about when you have been a customer, either in a business-to-business capacity or actually just as a kind of consumer of a brand. What have been the kind of real reasons that you have switched from one supplier or product to another? So just kind of try and kind of keep the phrases quite short, but just pop in the top 3 reasons you have switched from one supplier or product to another. What have been the things that have been really kind of driving that switch from one organization to another? So I can see folks are putting it into the chat. I've got some people kind of getting it in here onto the Menti. So click on that Menti link. I'll just put the Menti link into the chat just one more time. There you go. Just click on that Menti link and it'll take you straight through to the Menti, and you'll be able to kind of see that on your, it'll open up a new browser in your laptop or your computer, and just put in there what have been the kind of top 3 reasons you've switched from one supplier or product to another. So try and get those in there. So at the moment, we've just got a few of you who kind of done it on the Menti. I've got a number of you who've done it into the chat as well. So just try and get a few more responses going in there on what have been the top 3 reasons you switched from one supplier product to another, either as a kind of business to business or in more of a kind of consumer type of environment. So we've got 7 responses at the moment on Menti. We've got a few of you who have added that into the chat as well. So what things that have gone into the chat, some of you kind of talked in there around, let's have a look. So service, so Catherine, service is tantamount for me. Lack of relationship and trust. Service, trustworthy, value. Poor customer experience, not experiencing value for money. Ease of use, sustainability, customer service. Okay, service seems to be coming through as quite a kind of popular thing. When we kind of go to what we're seeing on the Menti screen at the moment, so price is in there as one of the kind of top reasons, but actually more of you are talking about things like service, customer service, slow or no response, trust or therefore lack of trust being a kind of real issue there, neglect, ethics, integrations, reliability, poor service, slow or no response, no communication. We can really see that a lot of the factors that are driving us to move from one supplier to another, one organization to another, actually tend to be, whilst price is still in there, far more driven by service factors and other kind of aspects like that. And there's a few other kind of data points that really kind of support this around the focus on service and customer experience. So one of the kind of data points is that typically if on average, if a customer receives good customer experience, they'll typically communicate that to around about 9 people. But if people experience a bad customer experience, that can go as many as 16 people that they will pass that on to. So you can see a real difference in terms of how much people will talk about good customer experience versus bad customer experience. Also, just in terms of the percentage of customers that will walk away from a brand, so 1 in 3 will walk away from a brand if they don't experience good customer experience. 53% is the kind of number in terms of brands failing to meet on experience expectations. And this is a really interesting one. So 76% of customers expect consistent experience between departments, so whether they're talking to sales or service or to marketing, but actually only 54% believe that sales, service and marketing are sharing information and therefore are connected in terms of the way they're working. So that's the kind of real context for why we're focusing in on this aspect of customer experience as being a kind of core growth strategy. And yes, it's really important to acquire new customers, to bring new business into our organizations. But actually, if we bring lots of new business into our organizations and then don't meet on those customer expectations, it really stalls our efforts for growth. So our focus today is going to be really thinking about what can we do to help customer and drive growth through that kind of focusing on customer experience. So I'd really love to introduce, I'm delighted to be joined by a few friends and colleagues of mine from who are joining as panelists. So I'm going to ask each of the guys to introduce themselves in a moment. So Juan and I've kind of known each other for just over kind of 6 years now. We did our MBA together. Joel, who's joining us today, we've been working with Joel and his businesses over the last kind of nearly year. And Harry, really delighted to welcome you as well, as our paths have crossed recently through our involvement in the Startup Awards and the kind of professional service category. So guys, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourselves, your businesses a little bit?
Yeah, I can go first.
Great.
Yeah, so as Barry said, my name's Juan, and I'm one of the founders of a company called Rebank. Rebank is the financial source of truth for global startups. And we basically help startups organize all of their financial tools in one place instead of moving them, so having to use multiple throughout the day. So yeah, we save them time. Yeah, that's me and Rebank.
Great, thanks, Juan.
And yeah, hi, morning everyone. My name is Joel. I'm co-founder of a business called Clone Media. We're a print agency, and what that means is we help businesses to achieve their marketing objectives through print campaigns, either helping them to acquire new customers, to communicate with the ones they've already got, or sometimes to like reignite lapsed relationships. Yeah, we've been around since 2010, so we're reasonably established, and yeah, we've been working with Work Extraordinary for the last year or so.
Great. And you also launched Swag Pack just in the beginning of the lockdowns.
We did, yeah. I think like a lot of businesses, we had a huge spotlight shone on us in 2020, you know, highlighting all of the good things that we were doing, but similarly, some of the things that we perhaps could have done a bit better. And born out of that time was a new brand called Swag Pack, which is an employee engagement business, whereby we send out branded boxes of goodies to individual addresses. So yeah, that was a success from that time.
Great, thanks, Joel. Sorry, Harry, cut you off
Oh,
there a
good.
moment.
Hi guys, I'm Harry. I'm one of the co-founders of Situ. We're a property agency specialising in helping tenants find office space in central London. We started about 3 years ago, so kind of not great timing in terms of COVID, but it really helped our business because actually we looked at how people used to take office space, and it was just so archaic, and we basically ripped up the rule book and looked at how people take spaces. And now what we do is we'll work with tenants and we'll work with landlords, but basically on the landlord side, rather than them just throwing the tenant a set of keys and letting them do everything to do with their office, we found people wanted to have their own offices, but they didn't want to necessarily be in a big shared service office building. So we now work with a landlord to do everything for that tenant, but still give them short, flexible lease terms, one price every month, and my company will cover everything. So when we're talking about service, that is absolute paramount to what we do in terms of, from cleaning to IT to security. And that's really what separates us between many other traditional estate agencies, I guess.
Perfect, great. Thank you. Thanks all of you for joining us today and giving up your time and really kind of helping to bring your experiences, your growth stories to life as we kind of go through today's content. And if you've got any questions at all for the panelists or indeed for myself, then do add those into the Q&A. We'll be kind of introducing in some of those questions as we go through, and certainly having some time at the end of today's webinar in order to kind of get through that Q&A. So do add your questions in there so we can kind of make sure that we get your questions to the group. Just in terms of who I am, so I'm the Managing Director of Work Extraordinary Limited, and we're a boutique consultancy that really focuses in on supporting growing entrepreneurial scale-up businesses think about how to design their organizations, how to really kind of focus in on the leadership shifts that need to happen from a kind of founder into leaders of growing and scaling organizations, but also what that means for the kind of the capabilities and the skills and the focus of the team and the culture in order to make sure that those organizations can really kind of grow and scale in a way that delivers not just an outstanding customer experience, but also enables people to thrive within that organization and do their best work. So yeah, that's what Work Extraordinary is all about. I'm also, we're also the managing partner of Semco Style Institute here in the UK, which is a global organization, but delivers transformational development programs in progressive ways of working. So if you're interested in either of those areas, certainly do kind of connect up with me, but more on that later on. So in terms of what we're going to be covering for today's session, so first of all, we want to kind of just start to talk a little bit about the attraction of growth and why growth ends up being so important to how we are setting up and scaling our businesses. Then going to talk a little bit about the challenges of growth and why does growth become really challenging and difficult. And then going to move into just designing organizational growth around your customer journey. How do we really think about doing that so we can deliver that outstanding service that we were talking about earlier? So first of all, just kind of getting into the attraction of growth. I think I don't need to tell anyone on here who is running your or kind of set up and running your own business, but the whole kind of focus of starting a business, it is a risky thing to do. And, there's lots of data points out there that tell us about how difficult or how challenging it is. And I think one of the things that's therefore really quite important about this is just thinking about the psychology of what happens when we set up a business. And you will all kind of relate to that idea of having that kind of core belief in an idea, but also to a degree within yourself or within the founding team around how you take that forward, how you kind of get that business kind of set up and going. But actually the percentages of people in certainly across the UK, but actually globally, who really want to set up a business are far higher than those that ever get to it. And the reason is you typically find that we've got all of those kind of, those people around us who care about us, who are looking out for us, but also have kind of interest in varying shapes and forms around the kind of outcomes of how well the business does, kind of starting to ask all of those typical questions that we can hear. And vast majority of people end up kind of not necessarily getting past that or getting forward in terms of setting that up. But if you do, what we tend to then see is that that really reinforces a greater level of resolve, a greater level of determination in terms of kind of taking the business forward and really kind of seeing that through to completion. So growth is a fundamental part of, from a kind of psychology point of view, of, in many respects, it's proof that the idea works. It kind of really helps to reinforce, actually, I wasn't completely insane and going off on this kind of pretty risky strategy or risky route. That actually this is an idea that's really tangible and it's really kind of can have impact. But more than that, actually, growth is also really important about, we've got this amazing idea, we've got this great concept of how we want to do things differently, how we believe something can be different. And growth enables us to have greater reach and impact because we can get to more people, we can really drive that impact to more people. And of course, financially, it brings with us the opportunity to have greater resources, and more resources mean we can continue to expand and kind of amplify that impact. It does come with a cost, though. From an individual perspective, as founders, there's always that kind of personal sacrifice, because there's always the kind of having to put in lots of huge amounts of effort to get something mobilized, to start to get something going. And there's a concept in psychology we talk around, the sort of escalation of commitment, that the more you get into starting to commit to an idea or a course of action, the more that we kind of, that escalation of commitment means that we have to put more and more in. And therefore, what we tend to do, therefore, is we kind of stay on that path and we can really kind of focus to it. It becomes quite a kind of singular type of focus. So what I'd love to do is I'd just love to kind of open up to the panelists and just kind of get your thoughts on, where are you in your growth journey? What was really kind of important to you guys about growth and how you focused on your growth? Who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to, if you'd like, sure. Barry. In terms of growth, I mean, personally, I've always been interested in it. I had a career as a salesperson previously, so I was very driven by numbers. But since starting our business in 2010, growth has been about stopping doing the job that I started doing, which was hitting phones and letting everyone know about what we do and building a team that can do that. I think growth as well is a bit of a hedge at the moment, isn't it? Because inflation's so high that if you carry on doing what you were doing, it's not enough anymore. And it's just a bit risky to kind of sit back and continue without growth. So where we're at in our growth journey at the moment, in 2020, we had a team of 8, and we are up to 18 now, which has been a really interesting and quite difficult period of time, because all of a sudden you've got more new people than people that were here originally. And so I guess embedding all of the original company culture and beliefs into those new people, getting them up to speed quickly, and often getting them up to speed in jobs that weren't even a job before, certainly here, has been difficult, but super rewarding. And we're excited for the future.
I'll go next.
Go for it.
So we're still quite a relatively small team. We're 10, but we've doubled in the last 12 months, and I suspect over the next 12 months we'll continue to probably double. So we've been very fortunate insofar as, what we're doing is very popular. We're making life very easy for people who want to take office space. They want their own private offices. They want control of their own meeting rooms, their own kitchens, their own space, their own branding, but they just don't want the headaches of everything which used to taking a traditional lease. So the biggest challenge for us is really balancing that service level. So bringing people in, making sure that they're they're trained and they understand the way in which we work. For us, it's the service and the quality and the care is paramount to our business, far more than any financial elements. Back to some of your original slides, Barry, about that feedback. People have a good service, they'll share it with people, but equally if they have a bad service, that's so detrimental. So one of the biggest challenges which we have is getting people in quite quickly at the moment, but making sure that they fit insofar as the culture, the kind of family-like setup we have, insofar as how we see our team and how we treat each other, and making sure that that's shared to the people which we're working with. And when you're working in sales, that's quite hard, because obviously a lot of people are coming from a situation when they're paid on commission, they're driven on deals, and for us it's, yes, we want to do business and we want to do deals, but not at the paramount of giving people the right advice and the right service. So that's our kind of balance of not going too quickly and kind of forgetting the core of where we need to be, basically.
Yeah, great.
So, well, the question was growth, where we are and what growth means to us. Was that it? Yeah. So we're a team of 9. I would describe our journey so far into, like, the first part is like figuring out product market fit. So figuring out like something that people really care about. And then after that, kind of building a scalable go-to-market where the levers are very easy to identify, and which channels work and what the return is going to be. So that's where we are now. We spent some time building a product that focuses on some very specific problems for global startups, and that's very different to where we are now. So I think growth is, if you're not growing 30% month on month, then there's a problem. and that's kind of just goes back to some of the accelerators that we took part in, where the partners would say stuff like that to us. I think they have a concept of sort of looking for the fast moving water, and I hate using kind of nature metaphors in business, not as much as war metaphors, but I think there's some truth to that. It's, if something isn't helping you grow, then stop doing it or change something. So that's where we are now. It's is this helping us grow a lot? No. Okay, let's try this, and then we just move on and on and on. That's us.
Okay, brilliant, great. Well, and just sort of hearing the kind of different things you guys are talking about. So, you talked a lot about kind of headcount as kind of being a key aspect of where you were within your growth journey, and talking therefore about kind of bringing in more people, and therefore what that means in terms of culture, in terms of kind of making sure that people really understand the way how we do things around here, not going too quickly, but also, Juan, you're kind of talking there about that kind of adjustment and pivoting and kind of being adaptable to really kind of focus in on what is that kind of North Star, and are we really kind of hitting on that or driving towards that? Yeah,
because I think when you start, you're mostly wrong about everything, and all ideas, even the good ones at the beginning, sound and look dumb. So if you're not willing to adjust and I think the biggest thing for me and Simon, our co-founder, is just being honest with ourselves. Every couple of months, we kind of sit down for breakfast, lunch, or whatever. And I'm actually, none of these things work. Why are we still doing them? So I think you need to just keep course correcting.
Yeah. Being willing to kind of let go of things as well as kind of keep on with other things. Okay, great. I'm just going to build on therefore some of the themes that you guys have been talking about there around where you are in your growth journey, and just sort of start to introduce, I suppose, some of the kind of the challenges that happens when we start to kind of focus in on growth. And the first thing really is to kind of talk about I suppose, the increasing level of complexity that happens. So most of you have talked about headcount and the kind of number of people that you kind of brought into the organization, and how that kind of aspect of headcount has made things more challenging and more difficult. And actually this, I don't know if many of you will have seen this type of thinking before. This comes from so Richard Hackman, who's a psychologist, who looked at what's the kind of optimal size of team that we would typically want to have. And certainly in the early days of your kind of growth journey, teams tend to be incredibly flat. There's no real kind of structure in them. And so therefore what we experience is that as we kind of start to increase the number of people within the organization, and what you see is that the number of relationships become significantly more complex, and there's a huge amount of social complexity that comes into organizations as you begin to increase the number of people. And what that ultimately means is that organizations have to start to think about the need to organize, the need to structure, how we go about setting up the work that we are doing in a way to continue to meet our customer needs. And what that results in is it kind of results in greater levels of process, more kind of formality in the way that we kind of go about doing things, and ultimately a kind of desire to kind of start to, in order so that people understand the culture, the way things are happen around here, the way that we deliver service, we can then start to kind of get into ways of documenting how we work and how we can deliver on those. And what that can ultimately kind of continue to lead towards is you end up with introducing in management tiers and kind of different kind of aspects of kind of functional HR or some of those types of things. And this is just based on kind of some research that we've been doing. So typically organizations get to normally around about the kind of 24 head count when they kind of start to kind of introduce in management tiers and management layers. And it's normally around about kind of 48 number of employees by the time organizations start to think about hiring in dedicated HR. And typically it's around about the time we're going to get to about 100 headcount when most organizations end up kind of in this far more of a kind of corporate organization, and a lot of the kind of entrepreneurial culture, that kind of early spirit of the organization ends up feeling a little bit kind of disconnected. And I suppose the kind of big question here is, well, so what? Well, one of the things that we see happening is that founding teams and leaders end up getting to a point where they feel that they become more and more disconnected from their customers, from the market. And there's a real kind of tension then about trying to stay more involved in what's going on in order to make sure things are happening the way that they're being done or should be being done. And that ultimately leads to either kind of working long hours or a huge amount of pressure on founders and leaders, but also kind of real bottlenecks in terms of the way that the business operates, but also that kind of shift from founder to leader can be a real kind of difficult transition. And so founders can often struggle to kind of develop their leadership skills and capabilities at the same rate of growth as the organization. And what that can, the kind of flip side of that for the talent that we are bringing into organizations is that we can see that the team become less engaged, and they start to kind of keep their head down or they leave, resist attempts for new managers to kind of exert control, but also kind of end up kind of that as that kind of culture shifts more from that entrepreneurial flat structure where everyone is able to kind of contribute in voice. You end up kind of seeing people kind of starting to kind of shut down a little bit and volunteer less ideas, be less creative, and show less that kind of entrepreneurial flair and input. So I'd just like to kind of pause there and just as we're kind of talking about some of these kind of broader challenges, how has this played out for you guys, or what kind of challenges have you experienced, have you seen?
I'll start if that's all right. So challenges in growing. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean about the nodes. We think about that a lot. So when it was just three of us, it was we just said, yeah, we think this, why don't we do that? Okay, let's do it. So like from thinking to building it's very fast. When I think around 7 or 8 people that started changing, I was getting feedback from my team that like they didn't really know where they were going or what they were supposed to do, and we never really had to worry about that. So I had to put in more sort of structure around like our vision and things like that. So yeah, that was one thing. But I think what helped was in my meetings, my one-to-ones, I always ask questions like, what's making it difficult to work at Rebank, and like, if you were me, what would you do differently? So it's these questions. So like it's not about looking for growth and then trying to find the problems. It's more about like, what are the 3-4 questions that you can talk about every 2 weeks that then highlight what is getting in the way of more growth. So yeah, I think that's been a big change for us.
Okay.
I think for us, it's one of the biggest challenge for the founders was actually letting go and trusting the people which we brought in, and delegating. And just as you're going through those slides there, Barry, I was looking, I think, yeah, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I think the other thing, linking to my previous point about getting the right team, we've had to realize that actually, and as Juan said to start with, the way in which we did things initially, was not necessarily correct when it comes to recruitment. So now, for example, we engage the whole team when it comes to getting a new member of staff in. So a couple of founders may meet the individual to start with, and then the other 2 will then meet, and then all of the team will meet the person who we're looking to employ. And it's slowing the process down. But that can be from a situation where they might go to the pub for a beer, they might go for a coffee, they might go for some lunch, but not just meeting that person in an office interview environment. And that's been a really big thing for us to get the buy-in from the team. And the team really feel part of this growing experience that everyone can collectively speak very openly about what they're looking for in terms of fellow employees, and it's kind of worked really well, that. And it's but it has been hard for us to kind of let go and kind of trust the team more in these decisions rather than just making the decisions ourselves.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Harry. Joel, thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I completely agree with everything that's been said previously, but I think if you start a business, you're a certain kind of person, unless you do it out of circumstance. And usually that reason is you think you can do something better. What the challenge is, I think, for founders are sometimes it's easier to continue doing it yourself than to give it to someone else, whatever that task may be. And I think relinquishing control on certain elements can be a real barrier for growth. Like Harry said, making sure that you're trusting the people that you've hired to do jobs that you were perhaps previously doing yourself. But yeah, I think all the best companies are the fastest growing companies are the ones that don't have the bottlenecks of founders where every decision needs to go through them, and trying to get to that is, I suppose, dreamland for us.
Yeah, so there's just kind of pulling through to some of the kind of themes together. I think some of you kind of talked about that kind of letting go control, and therefore how you articulate what Juan's talking about the really kind of articulating that vision in a compelling way that everyone understands and can really kind of buy into, but at the same time then kind of trusting people to be able to do that and to deliver on that. And actually, you brought in those skill sets and those capabilities for a particular reason. So how do we let that flourish and thrive, and as opposed to kind of needing to kind of control everything? And any thoughts on how you guys have kind of gone about doing that kind of shift of letting go of control?
It's actually, I think it was, I don't know, once you've done it 2 or 3 times, like once you've done it a few times, it actually becomes easier after that, easier to let go and not own everything yourself. But I guess I'm just thinking about it, and what I remember was like, as soon as I, because you do all the reading and the research, and it's like leaders need a vision and all this crap, and I'm like, okay, let's sit down and actually think about this. So I sat down and thought about it, and actually once I shared that with the team, with a few people, they were like, this is so cool, like this. I was enjoying working here, but like now with this, I just feel like, they just got excited about it. And to be like what we do, if I can say just for 60 seconds, like we're a fintech, we're in B2B. So most products like us are kind of trying to build a bank or trying to build some kind of Amex thing. But for us, when we really thought about it, when I thought about what I wanted this company to be, I was like, no, we're not. That's not what we're about. We're going to help companies grow without a finance team. And when the team heard that, they were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I can imagine that, in a few years. And so that was the thing. But I think once you let go, then all you can do is let go. Like now I'm basically just I'm always my style has changed where I'm like telling everyone like do this for me and whatever. So
okay, great. So one of the big things that you've talked about in there, Juan, and we tend not to focus so much on vision as much as real kind of sense of purpose. What's the kind of real purpose for what we as an organization are trying to do? And if you can connect everyone with that purpose, so people really feel that and live that and own that themselves, that's far more powerful. So then actually you don't need to be in kind of hands on everything. Joel, Harry, any other thoughts on that kind of letting go piece?
I do have, if that's okay, Harry. So what have I done, or what have we done? One of the things we've done is physically moved in the office that we're in. So we're in a big open plan office, and Simon, my co-founder, and I have moved into one of the meeting rooms, or what was historically a meeting room, and for two reasons really. One, to give the other people in leadership positions here the opportunity to kind of flourish, and for us not to be involved in every single part, which is impossible not to do if you're out there. If you hear things, they distract you. So it's kind of like, I feel like we've kind of gone, I don't want to say backwards, that's not right. Sometimes it feels like a backward step because we're all about sort of openness and communication, but at the same time, just giving those people the opportunity to do their job without sitting right near them. That's one of the things that we've done.
Removed yourself from the temptation of getting involved.
That's it. Door shut policy. No, joking.
I'm not sure that's what we'd necessarily be advocating, but no, cool.
Of course not.
For us, it's just, I mean, the best thing is just seeing how, various members of team have really flourished with being allowed to, and when I look back, actually, in a weird way, I kind of think, I should have let these guys do these meetings before. They're better than me. They are, they're you literally, kind of, it's like, their wings have been unclipped, and you can really see how well they're doing. And when I say that, not just with their own enjoyment of the way they are in the office and chatting to people, but the feedback we're getting from the clients. I'd probably say our last 4 recruits now, the direct feedback from clients and people who've worked with them and who they've helped find office space for has been incredible. And I would say for us as founders, so rewarding to see what people are saying about these guys. And I think, in a kind of a parent-child type relationship, it's important that we have had to take a step back. And it's just been, nothing but, good for us as a company to do that.
So one of the mindset shifts we help founders go through in that kind of transition from founder to leader, it's a really important one. It's actually probably one of the most difficult that for founders to do, is around leading without ego. Because going back to some of that, the psychology piece we talked about earlier, is that as you kind of really kind of look to kind of reaffirm and build that kind of resolve and determination and focus and singular focus that a lot of founders have to have in order to set up the business, but then grow and start to expand and scale that, is that you can kind of get trapped into this point of kind of believing that I do this best. I know how the best way to do this. I know the best possible approach for how to deal with our customers, the best possible way. And actually being able to start to step back from that and acknowledge and recognize, actually, there's other people who can do this really well. In fact, actually, they're maybe even better at it than I am, better at it than we are. That's actually a really important kind of mindset shift for founders to do. So great to hear. Great. So the final thing we just want to kind of share with you, just before we kind of head into the Q&A, is just going back to this piece around, therefore, customer experience and how do we design moments of exceptional experience for our customers. And one of the things that is really important to do, and whether or not your customer journey looks like this or something kind of similar to this, is really thinking about the kind of every single customer touch point through your customer journey, and how can we make sure that that is tailored really well to your context, unique to your proposition, but delivers critical moments that matter. And those moments that matter will vary depending upon your business, your value proposition, what it is, or what that customer journey looks like. But within that customer journey, there are going to be some key moments that are, because there's every touch point is important, but key moments that ends up being a real critical moment that really matters, that really makes a significant difference. And what we typically then try to do is look at, well, how can we design an organizational model and a way of teams operating that adapts to that proposition and to those specific customer needs. And so the type of approach we always look to take is then really kind of building multidisciplinary teams that draw on high quality customer intelligence, so everyone can have accessing and using the same information, the same type of intelligence, and having connected metrics, so that ultimately what we can do is we can turn those critical moments that matter into outstanding moments of brand experience. And I just want to, before we kind of just round out the kind of final thoughts on how Work Extraordinary approaches that, I'd love just to hear just some thoughts from you guys around what have you been doing in order to really kind of keep customers right at the heart of how you are growing and how you are scaling your businesses.
I think for us, it's quite easy in some ways, insofar as we're designing bespoke offices for people. So they'll come along and say, my corporate colors are red and green. We want this wall red and green. We need a phone booth. We need private collaboration spaces. We want, it's quite, we're working with lots of scaling startup tech companies. Generally, there's quite a common theme in terms of they might want some outdoor space. They might want some private spaces for Zoom rooms. They might want branding, on the walls. All that bit is kind of, fairly standard in terms of the operational side of us delivering the spaces.
Yeah.
But I think what we try and look at is, obviously there's lots of people who are, I guess, commercial estate agents, surveyors, brokers, whatever you want to call them. But, we continually, it's a bit cheesy, but, there's a lot of good people out there, but we, at the kind of forefront of our thoughts, is we don't want to be good. Every one of us, we want to be great. So in every element of what we're doing, if it's the, questionnaires, the research of where people are coming from, what locations in London are going to work best for their team, questioning people when they're saying, because quite often people will say that they want something, and then you actually question why, and you realize actually what they're suggesting may not be the best design of that office for what they're trying to achieve. So on every level for us, it's questioning, re-questioning, focusing on what the client is trying to get out, what's the end goal, and just ensuring from our experience of other people working with other tech startups that actually, they are on the right path, basically.
Great, thanks, Harry. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah, sure.
I remember reading something ages ago. I could never remember which book I read it in or where it was from. So sorry about the lack of source. But one of the big hotel chains did a study, I think, on the sort of key moments in their brand experience. I want to say it was like Marriott or someone. And the three things that they identified as most important to the customer, I think, were like the check-in experience, the checkout, and the shower. And if they could get those three bits right, they often got much better reviews. And
not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order, no. But I just think, yeah, absolutely. Like taking some of those key moments, the most important moments of your customer's journey, and just seeing how you can improve them is something that we've certainly been looking at. We're a small business still, but there are still levels of bureaucracy in what we do, which have just occurred, having been in business for 12 years. So we've tried to remove some of those and just make it a little bit simpler. And yeah, I just think remembering at all times why we're trying to grow and who's helping us grow. And at the end of the day, is our clients, our customers. So we need to keep those at the forefront at all times with our decision making.
Yeah. Thanks, Joel.
Barry, you're gonna have to remind me of the question.
What are you guys doing to really kind of focus in on keeping customers right at the heart of what you're doing
through the experience? Yeah. So you showed like a flow, and like, you know, I think we look at everything in terms of systems thinking. So yes, there's a whole system of like learning about Rebank to paying us. But within that, there are subsystems that we can look at. And I think when you break things down into subsystems is when you can start to optimize things. So we, you know, being digital, right, not having like a shop or anything, we can measure a lot about how people use our product. But actually, the thing that really helped us get off the ground was talking to people. So we used to do 5 calls a week with new founders or customers, and then, you know, like everything, you start off asking questions and you're like, oh yeah, I think that went well, but then you realize the questions that you ask are crap, and you're not really digging into why someone enjoys using your product or why they don't. So like the thing that I think first time founders always do, including myself, was like when someone gives you like positive, I love this thing that you did, you're like, yes, thank you. It feels like validation, but actually what you have to do is like, okay, but why? Like, what did you love about it? And why didn't you, I don't know, love this thing, which is similar, but not quite the same? So when we started combining the sort of the qualitative with the quantitative, it really helped us design like a better product. You know, our product is self-serve. So you sign up and you use it. There's very little involvement from us, so that's sort of critical when you're building a SaaS tool to combine both of those. So yeah, subsystems and measuring, if you can, doing those two. But then actually I'll tell you, when you do that, especially the whole measuring thing, you end up with so much data that you just don't know like where the hell, like which number should I move? And that's where the sort of you kind of have to detach yourself from the business. And well, I lock myself in a room and I just write until something comes out. And yeah, that's how we picked our North Star. That's how we pick our key objectives, all sort of numerical, measurable. And, you know, I'm not saying they're like the perfect objectives, but like you just need that sort of those constraints. And so that people just go for it and then you revisit. So
yeah, perfect, great. Okay, well, thank you guys. Final just couple of thoughts. I think really just to kind of round out this before we kind of get into talking about the questions that have come through. And at the moment we've currently got 4 questions, so if you've got more questions for either myself or the panelists, please do drop them into the Q&A now. Just kind of final thoughts then on Work Extraordinary and how we typically help founders and leaders to unleash the growth potential within their business. And first of all, I mean, a big part of what we've been talking about today is really kind of rethinking how you grow and scale. And if you're wanting to kind of get a little bit more into the detail of how we are and how we do that, and how that might be something that you can think about within your business, then we're looking to deliver a follow-up webinar on the 25th of November. So some details on that to follow. But then also helping founders and leadership teams really kind of start to kind of shift focus into what we call next level leadership. So leadership that enables that scale up and a kind of mindset and scale up focus. And a big part of that, as we've talked about, is about how we let go, how we enable kind of greater levels of autonomy and participation within our organizations, how we can really kind of help to develop organizations that are adaptive and kind of responsive to the needs of customers, and therefore how the business needs to grow and scale. And the kind of third pillar of that is then about creating exceptional teams that are able to be autonomous, but also grow and thrive and do their best work. And if we can focus on teams and people doing their best work, then customers ultimately reap the real kind of benefit of that and enable that kind of growth potential within their organization. So on that point, I just want to now, as I say, we've got 4 questions at the moment. If you've got more questions, do drop them into the Q&A. But I'm just going to, first of all, one of the questions has come in around recruitment. So as you were growing, how did you find recruiting the right people to fit your organization and your growth plan? Who's got a thought on that? I'm going to stop sharing so that we can kind of see everyone's faces.
We still work with recruitment companies, but actually increasingly it's more we've put in the referral system. So anyone who works with us at the moment, if they know of good people within the industry, we've had success from that way. And the other way is kind of, again, just within the industry, you know, we speak a lot to other co-founders, to other kind of people who work in our sector. And we're constantly just kind of in a nice way, you know, who's good? Have you been impressed with people? And that can be from all levels of experience, but fundamentally for us, it's more about the person. You know, it's that what we do is not rocket science. You know, if you're honest, if you're trustworthy, if you're reliable, if you're just a good person, you know, actually understanding what someone wants in an office space is fairly straightforward. So our success has been more from people internally recruiting for us.
Okay. Other guys? Joel, Juan?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. Our recruitment process is still, for sure, a work in progress. We find recruitment quite difficult, but I feel like we're getting much better at it. And yeah, we've used agencies in the past, mixed results, if I'm honest with you. And more recently, we subscribe to a few of the job boards, and then when we've got a job we advertise through LinkedIn, we get reasonable responses from that, and then yeah, we just interview internally. So that's been going okay until now.
We only do our own like headhunting, and we've sort of worked on this for a while. So it's me and Simon, my co-founder, will reach out through LinkedIn directly to people that we think might be a good fit. We look at things like experience and background, if they're engineering, and you know the companies they've been in, to see if they would understand our customers or the problems that we will face. We don't use recruitment companies; they're a waste of time. And we haven't got around to referrals yet, but I'm sure there'll be a point where we do. I think what we've there is sort of, if you break it down, there's like the opening message to get someone on a call, and then on the call you're selling the company, you're selling the vision. And like trying to understand what they're about. So that is how we think about hiring. It's like it's the most important thing. And I think this is also we don't look for fit. And I think this is starting to become more commonplace now. We look for what they add, what new things they bring, both from from like a technical abilities, but also the sort of soft skills as well. And that's what I get most excited about when I see someone that just thinks and acts so very differently from everyone else. But yeah, that's how we think about it.
Yeah. Okay, great. I mean, I particularly love, so Harry, you talked about kind of involving the team in aspects of what that recruitment is about. So we do talk a lot about kind of participative recruitment, but also I think what both Joel and Juan were talking about, that kind of bringing in not just skill and capability, but actually bringing in that kind of real kind of diversity of thought. And that's a really important thing for, as you kind of think about growing and expanding the culture, really kind of so that the culture doesn't become too much of one thing, is a really kind of important aspect. Okay, next question is, what shifts do you think COVID has caused in what people want from businesses in terms of experience?
I mean, I would say fundamentally, it's changed the occupiers which we now speak to in terms of what we do with offices. COVID has changed the dial on so many levels in terms of sustainability, environmentally aspects of a building, what people are trying to get out of their offices. Before, an office was an office. Now that office is one of the key tools of, attracting the right talent, getting the right people into their organizations. People are not, they're not coming in 5 days a week necessarily, but when they do come in, they're wanting a much better space to come into, whether that's, more space for the team, whether it's more collaboration, whether that's having a roof terrace on the building. But fundamentally, I think it has made everyone relook at their lives and how people are working is, you spend more time with your colleagues than you do with your own family most of the time. So I think having a right environment is so key, and if it's not right, I don't think you will attract the right staff or the right talent.
Okay, Juan, thoughts?
COVID. So it's really context dependent. It's sector specific as well. So for us, it's been good because more companies are global by default, and that adds complexity to their back office, their finances. That makes our solution more appealing. It's sort of grown our market, but like in terms of experience for our side of things, what we're seeing is just more global, what do you call it? So more companies around the world learning about us and sort of trying us out. But I couldn't pick something specific about like what has changed. I think that might be easier to answer in like retail, for example, someone with retail experience, because that has definitely changed. I think just like after the recession, we had sort of like a high street kind of meltdown, and we went from like, what did we have? We went from like shops to like coffee shops and wine bars. There's going to be something similar, I think, this year and next year, and I don't know what it's going to be. It's like VR rooms. I don't know what we'll go to, but that's very interesting in terms of like the digital side. It's just more about more companies being default global as far as I can see.
Well, so Joel, definitely you've seen kind of an impact on that.
From COVID, do you mean?
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, our business, our original business, Clone Media, is very much based upon, or originally was based upon people meeting up, physical events, and obviously that stopped during 2020. I think for us, again, I hate to say it almost, but it's been good because we've come out of it stronger and better. I think the world's changed, the landscape has changed. I think people have realised that the whole landscape of business can change in a heartbeat now, and perhaps we're just a bit more aware of that. I think companies are more connected. How people are working together has completely changed. There's so many more remote teams now, or it seems to me there are. And yeah, I think just the way that people want to work within a business has changed as well. They've got different requirements now, and so many businesses started as a result of people being on furlough and thinking, well, why don't I do this myself? I think that's a stat for sure.
Perfect. Well, listen, we are at time, so I think we need to let everyone disappear onto the rest of their days. But huge thank you to you guys, so Juan, Joel, Harry, for joining for this session today. Really fascinating to hear your thoughts on and your different experiences, where you are in your growth journey, and how you kind of use customer experience and kind of really use that as a fuel to drive the engine of your growth in your businesses. So thank you very much for joining. Huge thank you to everyone who joined as well, from all of your questions, your comments into the chat. Really great to kind of hear your thoughts. And as I said, if people are wanting to kind of start to dive a little bit more into how you can rethink how you grow and scale, we'll be running kind of further kind of follow-up webinar 25th of November to kind of really kind of delve into that in a bit more detail. But look out for that. We'll be sharing some further information to you all. So without any further ado, huge thanks from myself, Barry McNeill, and really look forward to connecting with you further in the future. Many thanks.